What is up, folks? Casual Dad here with another Warhammer Combat Cards video, and today we're going to go ahead and jump into the Sync PvP event. It's only got 7 hours left, so this video probably isn't going to come out in time to actually help anyone run it, but we'll put it out, we'll see. But there are going to be more synced PvP events in the future, and so I wanted to go ahead and jot down some notes, or talk through some notes about this as I'm playing some games. So I'll play a few games, I'm going to jump right in. Just to go ahead and highlight, the reason this is different than usual, and we'll go ahead and try it, is that most of the time when you play Warhammer Combat Cards, you are playing against decks that people built with the trophy count and victory or challenge rating based on their last victory or loss when a human played them, but when you play against them, most of the time they're played by a computer. So the Sync PvP events are times to actually play against human players. So you'll find that the timer is very, very strict, so you have to play very quickly. And you do have to wait a little bit longer because you've got a human player playing on the other side. Also, all of the cards in this campaign are evenly leveled, and they're not anywhere near max. So they're right around rank 3 with a primary trait, and then no secondary traits if they're epic. They will have some secondary traits if they're legendary. So perfect example is a legendary, rank 3 of Precision Shot, rank 1 Inspire. And right off the bat, one of the things that you get a lot is the computer players you play against will almost always play the power cards last. Human players will do the opposite. They'll usually play earlier cards sooner. So what we're going to see right away is a kind of dramatically different play style, and especially with Darkstrider, it's just crazy, crazy different what a difference it makes going up against the scary stuff early. So it's actually taking advantage of the moving back and forth ability that Darkstrider has. So what we're going to see is the other power card. Yep, okay, and this is going to be brutal. And so it does make Darkstrider a much, much more dangerous opponent than you would find in the ladder. And he's already pretty good in the ladder, so this is a bit scary. So it is cool, you can play any warlord from your collection. All of your cards are evenly leveled, so if you're new to the game, this is a fun time to kind of try some stuff out. And, play an equal footing, at least in terms of level, with some other players. The downside is that if you've been playing for a while, you're going to find some of the cards that are your mainstays are actually depowered a little bit. I've got quite a few legendaries who have rank 2 of that secondary trait, and they've got the attack values just a little bit higher than you get in the rank you get in here. So I find that some of my cards that I'm used to using a lot don't stack up as well as I would have hoped. So there's that. But then some others do, especially legendary or epic cards. Some of these are quite a bit more powerful than I'm used to using. I don't think that my Belial is high enough level to have the single shield, but I'll have to double check after the event. I'm playing Logan, just because he's one of the more powerful ladder characters, and I'm playing kind of a weird deck with him. I actually have a quest to win games with him, which is why I'm playing him. But I'm going to play a couple games and you'll see me try some different things. Hopefully we don't have any connection issues. Those of you playing this campaign, it's very, very strict about server connection. So I found earlier today when I was playing on my phone, when I walked from our main router into a back room of the house that was off a range extender, that was enough to count me as leaving the current network, and it actually automatically dropped me, which was a unpleasant surprise. But it happens. And he's going to shoot me, of course. I may actually do okay here. He doesn't have a huge deck and didn't get the taunt when he wanted it. He's going to beat me up pretty good, but I've got Big Game Hunter over here pointed at the weaker of the two cards, so I'm actually able to put some damage through on this. And then with Logan's trait, of course, I can actively... and so you can see me playing very quickly. With Logan's trait, oh no. And if I have any connection issues here, it's going to go ahead and boot me. And I'm in my front room on one of the range extenders, so that may be an issue here. I'm not exactly moving. Hopefully it'll reconnect me quickly. It's pretty good. I only had the one game where I got the disconnect. And I've got a pretty iffy connection here, so it's not... worked out okay. Ooh, that's actually a tough call. We're going to go ahead and bop this guy. I don't want to kill the Medicae over here. I'm actually trying not to, so that I get a chance to wail on these big guys before they get a chance to redeploy. I want to kill at least one of them, ideally both. And then I'll actually have a decent chance. Because the thing about this deck, and the reason the AI plays power cards late, is so that you get a chance to... because if you play them early, it gives the opponent more opportunity for counterplay. So there's a lot more chances for them to actually do damage to the... Oh, let's see. What are we going to do here? Let's go ahead and do... Oh, man. Oh, man. We're going to risk it. I'm probably going to lose this game anyway, so we're just going to go for it. But yeah, so you give your opponent a chance for counterplay. If they have a target acquired where they can focus all fire on a specific opponent, they can do that, and the longer you have your power cards on the board, the more likely they'll be taken out. So with a top-heavy deck like Darkstrider, if someone takes out Longstrike and your big barrage card, that makes you significantly weaker in the game and makes it a lot more likely you're actually going to lose that. And here, too, he doesn't want to redeploy because he doesn't want to put Longstrike across from Tor, because Tor will do a bunch of damage. Even if it gives him the pop on Logan, Logan still has so many hit points, it's going to be hard to bring him down before he gets a crack at Darkstrider. So he did that. He still probably has me. My gutsy move probably wasn't gutsy enough, but we'll see. Because again, the thing here is if I can take out Darkstrider, I've got a decent chance of actually pulling this out, because there's not much else in the deck that's particularly scary aside from him at that. Ouch. Of course, he hits really freaking hard, so we'll see what we get. I should be able to get him here. Alright, Logan, moment of truth. And this is where the depowering a little bit actually comes into play. Alright, so I got face-to-face with Darkstrider himself. We'll see what else is in the deck, and if it's something I can take out in a reasonably short time, because Darkstrider can pull this out, but it's pretty unlikely. You will get to do a little bit of dancing with his redeploys, but again, when you put those two super power cards in here, what you're left with is pretty cheap. Especially with the Medicae and the Taunt Drones, those cost nothing, so we may have something else, but it's not going to be much. It's we're going to have to see what it is. One unfortunate trait you will see from human players is some of the time, if they know they're losing, there is a surrender button, but a lot of players will just let it time out and just sit there, hoping that their opponent will leave, rather than giving up the loss themselves, which is a really obnoxious but very human thing to do. So, mutter. When we're looking at this, one thing I actually really like about Warhammer Combat Cards, now he got me, that was good play, is that it is very flexible on time, where you can leave a game sitting for, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, done longer than that, and then come back to it later and not have lost your spot. You can actually jump back in to keep playing. So I generally actually don't like sync PvP events because there are plenty of other deck builders out there that are very real time that require your full attention all the time. And I don't love that playstyle necessarily. I do, but it's time and a place type thing. And if I'm going to play a deck builder a bunch, I like that relaxed timing. But I do also like to play synced PvP events when they're available, especially when the rewards are terrific. I definitely got, you could bet I would do anything to get that Wraithseer copy in there. Alright, so we're going to play another game. Logan is not one of my more competitive decks, especially in this, the way the levels are evened out. Some of the more beefy, arguably abusive melee cards are actually weaker than you'd expect to see them in most latter games. So we are going to switch it up to Lilith, who's arguably just as abusive, but I've got kind of a weird all-range deck here that worked out pretty well, so we'll try it again. I do really appreciate that all cards are evenly leveled, and a lot of human players will make mistakes that computers won't. In general, the players I've seen are pretty solid. I haven't seen any players make dramatic mistakes or anything that would really cost them a game. Just because generally people who are doing the sync PvP have played a fair amount, they know what they're doing. But you never know for sure. After this, I'll go ahead and talk about it, or I'll go ahead and play a game. One cool thing about everyone's levels being evened out is that you can try a Votann deck that normally would be Votann, that normally would be below the power curve if you haven't spent, oh, for crying out loud. And this is my fault. I again am in a back room with a weird internet situation, but hopefully this won't hold us up too much. One of the cool things about decks being evenly leveled, and I like to spread them out like that so I can put the cards pretty much anywhere. He is deploying last though, so I'm probably not going to be able to avoid that precision or big game hunter. But the good news is I'm going first, so unless he plays taunt, which he's Tau, he's almost certainly going to have a taunt drone. We'll see what he does. But yeah, so next after this I'm going to play the Votann deck that I've been playing because it's fun and interesting to play with, and you're not going to see many other people playing it. But my Photon cards are pretty low level, and I like to get the practice in with them and play them at like a semi-competitive level when I get the chance. No taunt. That was a unfortunate choice. Alright, this is going to be a little brutal. I should comfortably kill both of those leftmost cards and redeploy both of these, yeah. And not even take any damage back because it is my turn. And then debuff is ranged. Ooh, ouch. Sorry, buddy. And this he may be trying to play quickly because he doesn't want to play against Lilith. Maybe he doesn't play against Lilith very much. Lilith is a really obnoxious warlord to play against, and very, very good against human players because of that redeploy option, but also slightly worse against human players because they will actually counterplay, where the computer will not. That's one of the key things you'll notice is the computer will never, ever move cards around their deployment unless they have to for a warlord drop. And that's something humans do all the time, is shuffle what card is where when you're deploying new cards. So that makes it a much more dynamic game. So right there, you saw it. I'm going to chase that guy a little bit. But he can easily get him away. And he looks like he's doing Farsight, and he's got a pretty balanced deck. Both of those two battle suits that I just saw and killed are... they're expensive enough. They're not super expensive, but they're expensive enough that you're not likely to see them in a deck that has any other really power cards. So he's doing kind of what is often called a mid-range deck, where everything is sort of in the around the 20 to 30 points range, but you just end up with more stuff in the deck, which personally is the way that I like to play Tau, but it's not the most powerful Tau out there, because they do tend to run a really top-heavy deck where they have a couple extremely powerful cards and then a bunch of expendable drones as kind of the mainstay of the deck. What else you got, buddy? And this actually, the traits are about the same as mine, but mine is at like I think 140 something attack damage. So that's one that surprised me a lot in playing this, is I'm used to that card. I play it a lot, and I'm used to it doing significantly more damage than it does here, which has gotten me in trouble more than a few times. Ooh. I am going to lose that Dire Avenger here, but why rush? This is a little bit of a tough matchup. I'm certainly winning here, but the thing is, I'm going to run out of steam a little bit when I start not being able to redeploy these cards already. And when I do that, I'm going to be up against Farsight. So if I have Lilith on the board when Farsight drops, that could seriously hurt me. So I may play her early and pull off a melee attack just to bounce her back and save some of my ranged cards for later, but we'll see. It kind of depends on what he plays next. I am guessing there's at least one power card in there, probably a suit, but he may have a flyer in here. Okay. So probably not. I'm guessing the next card we're going to see is also similarly in that 20 to 30 points range, so not one of the bigger battle suits. But I think there's still points for it, even without that. Ooh, that was not. That was actually... I don't know if that was a good play or not. He will get to heal, which is nice for him, because Farsight's about to drop, but that does also mean I have a lot of cards to play without taking the hit from Farsight. And Farsight will either have to tank a bunch of shots or use his melee attack early, or some combination of both. Okay, yeah, so a mid-range suit deck, which is... there's nothing wrong with that. That's a decent deck, but it's... doesn't use the most powerful cards in the Tau range, and I'm able to pick it apart with a Lilith deck. Against a lot of other decks out there, that would be better. Because like, it would be really good against a Glogothrox. Glogothrox really loves a top-heavy deck where you can just really beat up on a couple cards and have them very heavily reduced in terms of what they're able to put out. And so Glogothrox is very good against your standard Tau deck and would not do well against this, just because there are so many different cards that all have relatively comparable attack stats. That deck that he's running would be a lot better in a Shaz-O Rely deck, where it gets that just passive buff to defense and offense, because that would apply equally across every card in the deck. Yeah, so he did the melee. He knows he's lost this, and that is one thing too that you'll see a lot, is some players will realize that they've lost. And then play accordingly. And so I'm going to go ahead and try to finish this out to save him some time. And that's something I'll usually do. If I know I've lost, I'll play my warlord and then do like a hit in their ideal attack stat. So I'll go ahead and kind of run at the face yelling, do the very honorable Space Marine run and charge thing to speed it up. Because we're not here to waste time, we're here to play some games. Alright, so that's one and one. Let's go ahead and jump to Warspeaky. Warspeak? Warspeak? I don't know. I love the name, but I don't know how to say it. And I think this is going to be my last game, because I've kind of covered the key stuff I wanted to cover about the differences between PvP versus normal play. Got a couple games in there, I wanted to show it off a little bit, see some of the stuff that other people are playing, but it's a lot more varied than what you're going to see in the ladder, because you've got a lot more players all at the same... There is no trophy ranking system, it's just whoever happens to be playing right then. And then the decks you'll see are pretty weird, because no one's really playing your finely tuned ladder decks, everyone's just kind of playing stuff and messing around. So it is kind of fun. You see just a lot more variety of stuff, and it all being at the same card level and being downgraded a little bit from some of the more abusive mechanics. They did a pretty good job balancing this, which on some level makes it a little bit frustrating, because most of the time in the ladder there's a little bit of an up and down where some of your cards are higher power but some of your opponent's cards are higher power, but it all kind of balances out where you both have your sort of flanking pieces doing the most work, whereas in this everything is kind of even. So it works out where some strategies that work in the ladder don't work as well in this. Well, I'm going to enjoy that. He's going to pop that directly against my heavy hitter, so let him do it. Just as a recap, the card that has that little spinny thing on it will temporarily turn off the abilities of the card opposite once deployment is done. And that ability triggers in the first card deployed every turn for Warspeaky. And he probably doesn't know that because a lot of players haven't played against Photon at all, let alone this Photon. So he was not expecting me to shut off his big game hunter. So I'm going to beat that up. I don't know if this is a newer player or not, or if he has a strategy I'm not picking up yet, because he still has a Logan deck, which is very dangerous and could still give me a lot of trouble, but that was a really good start for me. I know that this is a nice kind of social way to do this. I do, a lot of the time where they've done sync PvP events in the past, they've been within a clan. And one cool thing about that was you are able to discuss stuff with your opponent, and they're friendly games because it's a clan mate, so you're not going to do anything really terrible to someone who's in your clan. Where to a total stranger you might. So I do miss that kind of social aspect of it, but at the same time I understand why they didn't do that, because, you know, strangers on the internet, always a bit of a gamble. And here again, I'm going to mix it up a bit. I'm going to be a real jerk. I'm going to shoot the bejesus out of the shield guy. So this ability, again, will turn off the opposing card's traits for 2 turns. So I can remove that shield, shoot that guy, possibly kill it before his shields return. Yeah, I got the damage to kill it, sweet. And that's going to be a nasty shock for someone who's expecting a shield to stay up for a while. And this is, I really think that this warlord in particular of the 2 Votann warlords is really going to make an impact on the ladder when experienced players start getting these cards leveled enough to where they're actually competing with it. Right now it's extremely rare because they're so new, they have such a limited card pool. No one's had time to really level them aggressively, let alone even get all the copies. I'm still missing about half of the Votann cards. I only just got this warlord, and I think mine outside of the sync PvP is level 1. Maybe 2, but I think 1. So still a really powerful ability, but definitely not at all what you're seeing here. This is a much scarier deck than I could usually run. And that was a perfect test case of what you can do with target acquired with this guy. It is bonkers. If this faction ever gets 2 target acquired cards, this deck will be something to be utterly terrified of. Probably going to kill my thing, but that is no big loss considering the amount of damage I've done so far. He's still got a pretty beefy deck, even with the stuff I've taken out, but I'm guessing because of what I've seen, the other cards I'm likely to go up against are not going to be particularly scary. And that's kind of a waste, because there's no trait I want to turn off here, because the big game hunter's not triggering and nothing else is any abilities showing. Let's see if that's enough. I don't think that's enough range damage to take it. Oh wow, yeah it is. Wow, God, this guy. Whew. I did a Votann review not too long ago that talked about just the raw stats of these cards, and that's at low level. With these evened out decks, Votann cards compete really, really well against the other factions. Because this is an 8-point card throwing 50 damage. Sure, he's inspired, but still, that's like... And then this guy with Inspires throwing 90. Yeah, they're very scary. And most of the time people play against these cards, they're much lower level. So these have been bumped up dramatically relative to other stuff. And people just aren't used to seeing the faction at all, let alone having like strategies against their abilities. So he's going to get a couple kills here, and then I'll have the run of the... It's the terrible term. Pick of the litter for what I want to turn off. Taunt comes to mind. One thing to highlight with this guy again, though, and I talked about this in the review too, is that ability turns off opposing traits for 2 turns. But then after those 2 turns, the traits come back. So if you turn off something like Taunt or Shields, the card that you remove them from will then come back with that full Shields back up after the ability expires. So Shields being a problem, if you use this against Akaran, the Space Marine Warlord, if you turn off his shields, you can hit him, but you better be able to kill him in the 2 turns when you have his shields down, otherwise it doesn't do you any good. His shields will pop back up, and you'll have to clear them anyway. I'm going to do this. And take out our taunt guy and give a little bit of a melee dude. A little bit of a Logan equivalent character for when Santa himself pops on the board. With this, I have a pretty decent sort of mental math idea of what my cards are capable of when I play, but a lot of it is very much instinct, where I don't do the math all that much anymore, which makes things like this a little bit challenging. Ooh, that was actually probably not a good call, taking off the taunt, but eh. It makes it a little bit more challenging because the attack values I'm used to doing are completely different. The damage I take back, the damage I deal out is significantly different than I'm used to, so this leveling out really impacted me a little bit just in terms of mental space. I assume he's going to punch me, but he may psychic just to not punch me because he's not in a great spot no matter what activity he takes. But we'll see. Is this the same guy I played against? No, there's no way. Ooh, that's nasty. Oh, and I'll take out the taunt guy. Good, cool. And then we'll have Logan himself, and I'm going to turn off his ability. And a thing about it too, if the Warlord has a global ability, such as Logan's ability to do that splash damage, where if a card kills an opposing card with a melee attack, any overflow damage is 1.5 times overflow damage is dealt to an adjacent card. If you hit the Warlord with this disabling ability, it also turns off those. So like Rakharth's healing, the Avatar's passive buff to melee, if you hit that Warlord with this ability, it turns that off for all cards, which is awesome. And there I turned off his Furious Charge. But that may bite me in the butt, because if I don't kill him before that turns off, if my Warlord is played, he'll get to Furious Charge my Warlord, because the Furious Charge will just come right back in 2 turns, now 1 turn, regardless of what's going on, and he'll just do it. So I do save a couple turns where he doesn't trigger his Berserk, which is good, so he's not beefing up his attack damage, and also I did not get Furious Charged on the squishy card. But there's still a good chance that my Warlord will be nervous, except that at the level he's at right here, Etalk is actually, yeah, well, that was a very gentlemanly surrender. Thank you very much, Tech Cater. So that was that. You got 3 games. You got me talking at you for a while. Get to see me open some packs. Yay! I'll probably play a little bit more, but it doesn't need to be on stream. So if you've made it this far, thank you for watching my video, and I hope that it was helpful. And again, probably not going to be time for the campaign event that ends in 7 hours, but it probably will come up again the next time we have another Sync PvP event. Until next time.